Hello and welcome everyone to the IFAD-led event on fostering and financing youth innovation, held in partnership with IDB Lab, GIZ, the United Nations Population Fund, the World Bank, and the WFP Innovation Accelerator. We thank FAO for hosting the event and to all the people working in the organization of the World Food Forum for making today's event possible. Our world is home to 1.2 billion young people between the ages of 15 and 24. And the youth population is growing fastest in the poorest nations. Governments around the world face the challenge of providing young people with jobs and opportunities that safeguard their futures. In rural areas where approximately 600 million youth live, the challenges are particularly complex. Constraints on access to land, natural resources, finance, technology, knowledge, information, and education make it difficult for young people to contribute to the rural economy. Very few of them aspire to remain in rural areas and make a living out of agriculture. Too often, we see that their only option is to migrate, either to urban areas or overseas. Youth are often excluded from access to formal financial services due to legal restrictions, high transaction costs, and negative stereotypes about youth. In fact, almost half of young people aged 15 to 24 are still financially excluded. This is most acute among low-income populations in emerging and developing economies, where approximately 80% of poor people are excluded. Youth are also 33% less likely to have a savings account than adults, and 44% less likely to save in a formal institution. Financial inclusion supports inclusive development and is a key enabler for many of the Sustainable Development Goals. Although progress has been made to advance the financial inclusion of the world's young people, almost half are still financially excluded. Regulatory frameworks and inclusive policies that are both youth-friendly and protective of youth rights are needed to increase youth financial inclusion, as financial inclusion supports inclusive development and is a key enabler to achieve many of the Sustainable Development Goals. Indeed, access to financial, digital, and social assets is a key contributing factor to help youth make their own economic decisions and escape poverty. Links between young entrepreneurs in agriculture and formal financial institutions need to be strengthened by improving youth's financial and digital literacy and the capability of institutions to assess agricultural sector opportunities. There is a scarcity of venture capital firms or government programs supporting young entrepreneurs in developing and scaling up their businesses. In order to fill this gap, development organizations should continue to scale up their support for challenge funds and impact investing. Today, you will learn about the programs and financial opportunities offered by the Inter-American Development Bank Innovation Lab, by IFAD, GIZ, the United Nations Population Fund, the World Bank, and the WFP Innovation Accelerator to foster and support youth-led innovation. We will also have the opportunity to hear from FAO's leadership and from a representative of the Young Professionals for Agricultural Development Program, YPART. Without much further ado, I am pleased to introduce Beth Bechtel, Deputy Director General at FAO, where she is responsible for FAO's partnership and outreach work, leads programs in the area of plant production and protection, and oversees FAO's Committee on Agriculture and the International Plant Protection Convention Secretariat. Before joining FAO, Beth was President and CEO of AgriNovus Indiana, where she led on initiatives aiming at advancing the ag bioscience sector and developing 21st century talent. Beth, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Gladys, and thanks to all of you for being here for this really exciting session as a part of the World Food Forum. This is a terrific opportunity to have so many of our important partners with us in the room, and to all of you online, welcome as well. The World Food Forum really does showcase the power and potential of youth, not only in the transformation of agri-food systems, but in building a healthier planet. And it was my honor to have joined many of you already this morning at the opening of the Youth Forum. And it's a real pleasure to be here in partnership with our colleagues from EFOD, our colleagues from WFP. Many of you who may not be familiar, we are often known as the Rome-based agencies, the RBAs, and there is oftentimes great pressure put upon all of us to collaborate more, to find more ways to partner. And I think this very convening, this very gathering is one that we need to make sure we elevate more to demonstrate how we are all focusing on the future and the future of youth and smallholder farmers. We can't continue, though, in many ways, as we think about the next generation of leadership in food and agriculture, doing just business as usual. Something really does need to change, and those can't any longer be just phrases that each one of us ensures goes into our talking points or goes into our remarks. It has to be real. But what does that mean? And how can we make sure that youth really do have the means to innovate and be agents of change? My comments to you this afternoon are not going to focus on specific tools or specific tactics, specific projects, because that's what we have, this outstanding panel of people who are really down at that ground level working on the implementation of better financing options for youth. Rather, I am going to, I hope, give you a little bit more of the sense of urgency and the need for letting young people, letting youth be at the room, in the room, to start communicating, to start advocating, and to start engaging with many of us. You are important when it comes to shaping and developing the society we live in. And this full participation at the local, national, regional, and international levels is indispensable. Too many times, many of us in positions of significance and leadership roles in different organizations, admittedly, I think, lose sight of that. And too many times we think about hierarchy, and we think about protocol, and we think about who's supposed to be in the lineup or in order in terms of a speaking program, or even in terms of how we put together programs. That has to change. We have to make sure that the diversity of your voices, you as tomorrow's leaders, and frankly as leaders already today, are included in these forums. You need access to tools and resources, and we need to invest in youth so that you can innovate, so that you can be entrepreneurs. For us, we know that we can do better in terms of investing in training to build leadership and entrepreneurial skills, in improving financial literacy and access to resources, fostering more innovation and new ways of developing technology and other tools, and advocating for new ways of working and thinking. But all of that means that we need to ensure that we provide young people with greater flexibility, more adaptability, and ultimately opportunities. Youth are absolutely change leaders. I can't stress that enough. And I hope that we can continue to build on the momentum of bringing this World Food Forum and Global Youth Forum together so that we can demonstrate that to the world. Because what I can sense, you are not bound by conventional thinking. You are open to being a champion for equality in leadership, for building communities of inclusion, and you are strong advocates for safeguarding our planet, more so than any generation I would suspect in the past. So when it comes to our financing efforts, we need to make sure that we think strategically, but we also need to act more strategically so that we can create these positive impacts and real tangible change. The good news, though, is that what you are going to hear about today demonstrates that we aren't starting from the beginning. There is already so much groundwork that has been laid in this interesting space of financing and providing opportunities to young people to innovate. And I think the World Food Forum, as an example, is one of those platforms. Maybe an early developing platform, but nonetheless, a place where we can really continue to come together to advocate for this new way of working. Several other organizations have already been mentioned. They are supporting incredible pathways for transformation, including the Young Professionals for Agricultural Development, YPARD, who's here with us today. They act as an incredible catalyst for youth leadership and peer-to-peer development. And we're really pleased to have Sebastian, who's here with us, as a part of that organization as well. Just before this session, the World Food Forum hosted our annual Transformative Research Challenge. This, too, is an important way, an important sort of stepping stone to making sure that there are ways to encourage and to advocate for innovative academic research, scientific discovery from youth. And it provides this kind of expert mentorship to researchers to prepare their work for publication and ultimately share it with a global audience. Another example is that the research consortium partners with Wageningen University, who has been here with us throughout yesterday and today. They support new research and innovation through the sharing of scientific knowledge and other resources. And they work very closely on innovative youth-led projects to strengthen sustainable food systems. During this week, you're going to have a lot of opportunities to see for yourselves, I think, some of the really valuable projects that are the result of these successful partnerships. Tomorrow, I would be remiss if I didn't encourage you all to focus and attend or be in the room when the World Food Forum, in partnership with the Extreme Tech Challenge, will host a Youth Startup Innovation Challenge with venture capital and private sector seed funding all available to support youth-led businesses. And I invite all of you to join us, capacity accommodating. But it's through these partnerships and initiatives that I think we can strategically leverage more investment to scale up and drive impact. There are a number of food systems incubators, accelerator prize programs that invest in youth. They might be Thought for Food, Rabobank Food Bites, CIAL, the World Food Programs Youth Institutes, World Food Prize. Many local country-level programs are all now coming together and being available where we can create innovation centers together. This gives youth opportunities to incubate and accelerate all kinds of new ideas in agriculture and food. I want to again just say thank you to everyone who has been a part of putting all of these great programs together. I want to thank the sponsors, all the people who have really committed to investing in youth. Your commitment, your passion has been recognized. It is indispensable, and the time really is now for us to change the way that we think, change the way that we act, and ensure that bringing the power of all the experiences that you're going to hear about next in a very collaborative and very innovative spirit come together to really make a difference for, as we say, healthy diets and a healthy planet. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Thank you so much, Beth. That was very, very inspiring and truly a call to action. So I am now very much pleased to introduce our panel today. And as you see, and as Beth was saying before, we have here some of the representatives of the agencies that have been working, making sure that we provide those instruments that are so much needed in the ecosystem for youth to have access to financing. So with that, I'm now pleased to introduce our panel today. Moderating the panel is Sebastián Pedraza of YPARD. With him, Yuri Suarez, Chief Impact Officer at IDB Lab. Pathe Sen, Lead Regional Environment and Climate Specialist at IFAD's Environment, Climate, Gender and Social Inclusion Division. Prima Chandrasekhar, Information Technology Officer at the World Bank. Robert Hawkins, Senior Education and Technology Specialist and Global Lead for Technology and Innovation in education at the World Bank, Nigina Munchan, head of the Innovation Unit at the United Nations Population Fund, Nicola Unuhisi, new ventures consultant at the World Food Programme, and Christina Stansel, advisor at the Smart Development Fund at GIZ's Global Program for Digital Transformation. Sebastián, over to you.
Thank you so much, Gladys. Thank you so much to all our panelists to this fantastic session. So we will explore the different views that they have from their organizations about fostering and financing youth innovation. So we will start with Yuri Soares from the IDB lab. So I have a question for you that is, he's joining us virtually. So can you hear us, Yuri?
Yes. Hello,
Okay.
Sebastian. Go ahead.
Okay, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. So our question is, the IDB Lab is one of the main resources for financing development, focusing on improving life through the promotion of the innovation. So could you please tell us about the initiatives and the strategies that you're implementing to empower vulnerable population, especially youth, and promoting sustainable economic growth?
Thank you so much, Sebastian. Thanks, Gladys and Beth, for the inspiring words at the beginning. I wish I very much could be with you in person. I understand it's a sunny 23 degrees in Rome, and you all are taking the time to participate in this wonderful panel. So very much appreciative of the audience also. So Sebastian, in terms of innovation and pushing an agenda for inclusion, which is our mission at IDB Lab, we see the world food systems as something that have to fundamentally change. And we see that youth can be a super important component in that change, right? So just to give you a little bit of context, those of you who work in my region, in Latin America and the Caribbean, you know that depending on the year and the methodology, about 40 or 50% of CO2e emissions are derived from land use and agriculture in our region. So it's a region very heavy in terms of that carbon footprint. And it's also an economic activity that's responsible for a lot of habitat destruction and biodiversity loss. So I think we're really at a point where we need to move that into a better place, into a better type of agriculture sector. And really youth can be fantastically transformative here, right? So three things that I've just mentioned that I'll talk about very briefly. One is transforming the farm into a more digital and sustainable farm, right? So if you look at farm holders today, smallholders today in agriculture, the smallholder continues to endure challenging economic weather, price volatility, and the pandemic shock. They continue to really struggle to be able to adopt technology, generate assets, and address huge productivity challenges that we have in the sector. Smallholders in Latin America tend to be older. Median age is between 46 and 56 years, depending on the country. And in general, is a sector that needs a little bit of revitalization, right? So we think youth can be fundamental here, and this agenda of transforming and digitizing the farm is something that we're launching at IDB Lab. We're working with most of our Central American, English Caribbean, and South and Andean countries to try to ensure that whatever comes next, that our clients in smallholder environment are able to adopt digital technologies and sensors, mechanization, automation, are able to really be able to understand what's coming in terms of farm management platforms, risk management, are able to understand the products of fintech that are now available in agriculture throughout the region. They were not available 2 or 3 years ago, and are able to take advantage of digital marketplaces, better links with value chains, and in a sustainable and resource and low resource way, right? So I think that's the first agenda where I think youth can have a transformative impact. The second one is really our core business, which is to promote entrepreneurship and innovation throughout economic activity in Latin America and in this sector in particular, it's really fundamental, right? We see an emergence of agri-tech and food tech companies in the region. If we look at essentially 6 or 7 years ago, we were almost at zero, very few. We're over 300 companies right now. And guess what? Youth are leading these companies. They're all very young entrepreneurs who have been inspired by the need to transform the sector, who have a deep commitment to agriculture and to the sector, but also see this vision of where they want to move this region in the future, right? The median age of our founders in Latin America is 32 years old. Many of them are in their 20s. So 32 is kind of pushing the youth definition, but that's fine. But it's a very young industry, right? They're all digital natives, very versatile in technology, and they see the potential of not only digital but life sciences innovations to transform the lives of smallholders. Some of these are really vested in the transformation of the way a farm works. Others are more vested in the creation of additional markets such as low carbon, low resource, or even alternative protein markets, which started to take hold in Latin America, right? So I think this is also an agenda that's super important for us. And what we do here is essentially invest through a series of 50 investments right now in venture funds that we have, and also in direct investment, right? So we want to find the entrepreneur who's going to be able to push a sustainability agenda and at the same time be able to kind of narrow these productivity gaps that are so big in the ag sector in Latin America. A couple other things that I wanted to mention. Super happy about the transformation that we've seen in terms of gender equality, in terms of diversity, is not here yet in this sector, right? We have a sector which is not particularly diverse, and we have a sector which is fundamentally dominated still by men. So I think from IDB Lab, we would like to see this move forward differently. We've invested in a company called Yafund in Brazil. Is led by a very diverse group of founders and is dedicated to financing entrepreneurial initiatives, including in the ag sector, essentially for Afro-descendants and indigenous people in Latin America. So I think we need to really be active and not only passive in terms of our existing portfolio, but actively seek those opportunities which can help us bring together this gender equality and diversity agenda in a population that is absolutely open to do this, which are the youth. So I think that's another fundamental challenge that we have, but one that I embrace and we embrace at the IDB. And again, I see this as a super exciting time to be working in agriculture, and just the pace of transformation that we see in the field, in grassroots, is without precedent in my career, and I think it's going to continue to be like this and accelerate moving forward. And thank you so much, Sebastian, for the time.
Thank you so much for your interesting input. The finally new technologies can make more sexy agriculture for young people. So right now, I want to pass the floor to Robert Hawkins from the World Bank. Hello, Robert, can you hear us?
Yeah, hi, Sebastian. How are you? Can you hear me?
Very good. Thank you.
Excellent.
So education can transform lives, and it's in fact one of the key issues that the World Bank has been working. So could you tell us a bit about the initiatives the World Bank are funding in the promotion of education for innovation and youth engagement?
Sure. Let me just give a little bit of background. I mean, the World Bank is is the largest funder of education globally. We have a portfolio of about 16 billion. It's about 25% of overseas development assistance, but it's only 1% of the total investment globally in education coming from governments themselves. So again, we try to use investments as a bit of a lever to kind of change policy. And one of the policy areas we're seeing is particularly around how to use technology to think differently about access to education, as well as the results of education with regard to youth skills, and particularly digital skills. So many countries are looking at how to leverage the investments in COVID to look at a more hybrid, resilient education system, and to use that system to develop more relevant skills for youth. One of the big challenges we have is that many youth get passed on from grade to grade, and you might find yourself in a 7th grade math class with a knowledge level of a 4th grader. So teaching at the right level is really important, and being able to accelerate learning for young people through the use of technology is critical. We have been working on our mainstream investments, but we also do some innovation work as well. And one of the projects that Prima and I will kind of share with you today is a project called Evoke, which started 10 years ago in South Africa, looking at ways in which to reach young people where they spend their time. So the first question we asked is kind of a behavioral one. How can we think about the use of technology to develop a curriculum that revolves around storytelling and graphic novels to engage youth? How do we use social networks to connect youth to social capital? And how do we think about game mechanics to incentivize youth to spend more time on task? So this was the first set of activities that we did with Evoke in South Africa. It's evolved over time into a series of action research projects, really trying to hone in on how we can engage youth to think about global grand challenges, such as food security, and in a project-based learning curriculum, identify the challenge, come up with solutions, communicate that solution, and eventually develop the 21st century skills that are essential and needed for an ever-changing economy, but also a number of youth coming away with some viable ideas that can be incubated and accelerated in the type of incubation and acceleration channels that Beth had mentioned in the beginning. So this has been a very exciting project for us. We looked at this issue of behavior. We also looked at the issue of skills, and really seeing how technology, project-based learning can respond to the types of skills that the private sector is asking for, the 21st century skills with regard to creativity, collaboration and communication, empathy, problem solving. And what we found is that building out a curriculum based on project-based learning helps develop these skills in a much more robust way than, for instance, teaching creativity in isolation. Now, the project that Prima is going to expand upon is one that we did in Colombia with Aon University around the challenge of out-of-school youth and how to incentivize out-of-school youth to re-enroll in skill-building programs. And the example of conditional cash transfer and a program called Youth in Action in Colombia. And what we wanted to do is a next iteration from the behavioral research to the skills research to now use of new technologies in the blockchain space to determine how we could transparently incentivize youth at the school level to engage in specific curricula, finish those tasks, and finish them with quality. So what we did was we looked at 3 issues. One was how blockchain technology could improve the transparency of the flow of funds. So we as the World Bank or the government of Colombia puts money into a cohort of students, and through the blockchain technology, we could see the flow of those funds down to the student level as they engaged in actions on a platform, received funds in the form of tokens, digital tokens, and then we're able to exchange those funds in a marketplace, in this case, for cell phone minutes. The other issue we wanted to experiment was the issue of results-based financing. So 70% of our portfolio is based on not inputs, but outputs. Yet for every dollar we spend an additional 50 cents or 33% just on verification of the results. So the other question we asked ourselves is how could we build results into what are called smart contracts, basically if-then statements at the school level for youth so that they could receive funds directly. So again, if a student finishes an activity on a platform, then they will receive tokens. If they receive a grade of 80%, then they will receive tokens. So again, this was the other experiment that we did. And then finally, what is the impact and the incentive on young people who are out of school to stay in these programs, graduate from these programs, and eventually develop the relevant skills to be impactful in their society. So let me stop there. I just want to give you an overview of kind of some of the broader education issues we're working on, and then this very specific action research program that I think is very aligned to the discussions we're having today around innovation, around financing, and around empowering youth. And on the blockchain example, I want to pass to my colleague Prima, who will kind of run through a little bit more of the details on the technical implementation. Prima? Or Sebastian, back to you. I don't want to hijack your meeting here, but thank you very much, Sebastian.
Okay, thank you so much, Prima. So your colleague Robert talked about investment on education. And the World Bank also has shown how investment in technology can be used to change communities. So what are the financial instruments that you implement to encourage the participation of young people in addressing major global challenges?
Sebastian, thank you so much. Bob, thank you for the lovely introduction and setting the stage for what I'm going to say next. Good evening to everyone who's there virtually as well as in physically. It's really exciting to actually go to a conference, and I'm looking forward to going to one myself. Now, before I start talking about the technical and the technological aspects, I wanted to spend a minute introducing about where I come from. So I'm a part of the World Bank Group Technology and Innovation Lab, and the focus we have is very specific. We want to prototype what emerging technologies can do, and emerging technologies can be any. It could be the metaverse, it could be blockchain, it could be artificial intelligence. We want to understand what benefits and what risks do technologies bring to leverage and better implement what we are doing in the development space. Now, the technology opportunities to effect change are actually very high. And we have a model where we work with people within the bank, like Bob. We also work with not-for-profits, with governments, with private sector corporations. Our agenda is very clear. We look at technology and what can we do in the space of change making. Now, while working on the particular action research project that Bob just spoke about, we call him Bob, Robert Hawkins, it was very interesting because we had a very limited scope of work to do, and we wanted to understand what can blockchain do in otherwise very static projects to actually start changing the way different aspects of project management are actually undertaken. And that eventually will take us to the option of how do we raise funds much more efficiently. So to start with, one, what technologies such as blockchain and smart contracts can do is it can help us create programmable money. What that means is you can tie up payment of incentives based on certain deliverables being achieved, and that itself is a game changer. And this is applicable at the smallest scale to some of the largest projects that you would want to undertake in the future. We are able to look at fund traceability right from start to finish. Now, in the simulation that we had actually kind of created for the action research project that Bob was speaking about, it's called Evoke. We were actually able to start tracing the funds from when a donor gives the money to when the activities in the game are completed, to when the peer reviewers get the money, to when the entire project is completed, real time. Now imagine how much of funds are saved in monitoring and evaluation retrospectively versus having the opportunity to actually do that real time. We are able to look at this concept of results-based financing through smart contracts, which basically is nothing but setting certain targets, that milestones that need to be achieved, and ensuring that payments are only made after those results have been achieved and verified. So both of these processes are possible by looking at technology such as blockchain. We are able to create conditional cash transfers and therefore better incentives for action. Now, all of these, when you're able to demonstrate so much efficiency in a project, reduce turnaround, very quick turnaround time, reduced inefficiencies, reduce monitoring and operational and evaluation costs, what we are therefore able to bring about is an opportunity to mobilize additional finance, because now a platform like this can become a global good, and such commodities therefore would attract much higher and much more powerful donors than we have had in the past. So technology therefore is just a medium for very strong change and monitoring and evaluation in this space. Now, apart from this, what we have also noticed are two aspects which need not necessarily be technology based. But the first is when you're looking at technology platforms like this, we're able to reach out to people who are not conventionally in that space. So, for example, if you wanted to crowd in additional teachers for the purposes of monitoring and evaluation of such projects, that would be made possible. We are also able to micro target incentives directly to youth as well as other members who are participating in the forum. Now, the fact that incentives are so clearly demonstrable and the fact that they can see it real time, receive it real time, brings about a huge change and dynamism in the way some of these projects can be implemented. We are able to create transparency and trackability of resource use for the donors. This was something which was astounding when we actually had the simulation. And finally, we think projects like these are what drives home change. Now, this was just one part of the project which looked at blockchain implementation. But when we are taking it to the next level of asset creation and monetizing these assets, these could also become a very powerful instrument in how we are able to raise funds for some of these projects. And one aspect that we are actually thinking through, researching, and trying to move forward with is the concept of saying how do we create art and non fungible tokens, and how are we able to create revenue opportunities around these. Now, in the Web 3.0 economy, that's going to be, probably the next bit of hype as well as, operational excellence. We are probably trying to see how can you transfer tangible incentives such as crypto tokens to motivate youth to develop some skills. And this is very interesting because now we can start creating non fungible tokens from unique content that artists create. Now imagine this in a gaming sequence where I'm an artist and you are an artist. We want to write a story. We are able to create that story, create text around it, create artwork around it, layer all of these together like say a 30-second clip and sell that as an NFT out there. Now, what this opens up for us is immense amount of an ample amount of licensing opportunities, revenue generation opportunities from both primary as well as secondary markets, as well as an opportunity to track and ensure that artists get the money real time, which is exactly why if you take a look at some of these curated as well as open marketplaces for NFT such as OpenSea, this is exactly what is happening. An artist who may have been, in the realm of an unknown person now suddenly has an opportunity to come forth and shine. And platforms like the ones we are creating are probably more um, prominent because they have a very genuine space to create content with a particular focus and share it with the rest of the world. We are also able to control what kind of metadata goes into a non fungible token. And all of these aspects, when it comes to technology, allows us to create better products, better financing opportunities, and effect change in a much more stronger manner than visible earlier. I kind of agree with what Yuri said that the change we see today is unprecedented, and the opportunities to look at technology implementation for better financing just through better um, platform access, visibility, revenue generation, monitoring and evaluation, tracking, real time. All of these are set to transform the way we are able to raise funds for youth impact projects. So with this, I think I hand the mic back to Sebastian, and I'm very grateful to all of you for the opportunity to present some of the work we are doing here at the lab. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Prema. Thank you, Robert, for your amazing inputs about education and technology in the role of empowered youth. Right now, we want to pass the floor to Nijina Mutian from the United Nations Population Fund. So Nijina, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. So part of the fund mission is to ensure that every young person have empowered. Sustainable development cannot be achieved without assuring all enjoyed and dignity of the human rights to explore their capacity, secure their reproductive health and rights, find decent work, and contribute to economic growth. So how do you think they found disrupt inequalities while investing in young people, entrepreneurs, and innovators?
Thank you, thank you. This is such an exciting panel, and I wish I'm physically with you in that amazing room full of energy of young people. So I'm Nigina Muntian. I lead innovation at UNFPA, and I also lead the Equalizer Fund, which is our accelerator fund. So how do we at UNFPA, the United Nations Sexual and Reproductive Health Agency, resolve the issue of financing and supporting and empowering young people, and through that, addressing the roots of inequalities for women and girls? We have three ways: through initiatives, through investments, and through the job opportunities. Let me start with some examples of how we support initiatives in the countries where we work. We sponsor, for example, an I-Accelerator program, which is running in Rwanda, Tanzania, Uganda, and Kenya. The platform helps young people to scale innovative ideas with the seed funding for like up to 10,000 US dollars. The ideas which are emerging from this platform and support range from real-time monitors of the blood banks to data collection to portable ultrasound scanners connected to smartphone. So these solutions are not just cool gadgets or apps or digital platforms. It's not just a shiny object. These are the life-saving solutions. So these investments result to us, to the society where they work, as a huge social return. It doesn't just support young people to realize their ideas and get sponsorship, it also benefits thousands of women and girls too. And the great thing about it is that the young people who work in those communities, they know the problems and they know how to solve them. They can tailor their solutions to the communities they work. And this is really the beauty of those accelerators. So another example I would like to share is from Kenya, where we recently launched the world's first adolescent sexual, reproductive, and health development impact bond. Backed by a $7 million US investment from the UN Joint Sustainable Development Goals Fund, it uses the resources from public and private investors to finance the provision of youth-friendly health services for adolescent girls. And let me be clear, it's not just about giving cash to young girls to access services. It's about creating and making health services affordable for young girls by linking them to affordable health services. And the impact bond worked the way that only once results are verified, social investors are reimbursed with a return. So there is really a clear incentive to deliver the results and impact we want to achieve. We also finance young people through various innovation challenges. Let me give you some examples about that. Our Hack Lab to end female genital mutilation in Africa rewarded innovative ideas with up to $60,000 in seed funding and resulted in amazing ideas and winners who are now already implementing those innovations. Our Hack Lab for early and unintended pregnancies for adolescents rewarded innovative ideas with 10,000 seed funding in Eastern and Southern Africa countries. In Pakistan, we launched the Health and Wellbeing Youth Innovation Challenge, which encouraged young people to design solutions to issues affecting young people, teenage pregnancies, child marriages, inequalities, and we also support the startups with the seed money. At the corporate level, we launched, as a part of this Equalizer platform, we launched this year the first challenge to support for-profit female-led social entrepreneurs. As a result, we have 10 winners from different emerging economies, and we give them 60,000 seed funds, but we also provide them with the funding, with the mentorship and coaching, and we collaborate with 3 other UN agencies, ITU, WIPO, and ITC, to really make sure that these social enterprises, as a result of this program, are investment ready. So they already have minimum viable products, but we help them to position themselves on the market to survive financially and through the improved business models, and at the end of the program, be really investment ready. And we hope that this model can be then replicated at a different level within our organization and support, because this is really, from our perspective, as one of the most sustainable models. And lastly, let me address how we create opportunities. We give young people the opportunity to work directly at UNFPA with UNFPA, and not just interns. really professionals. We have few programs like that. This year we run the Young Innovators Fellowship Program, and we recruited 18 exceptional, really exceptional young people without any work experience as a requirement. And we placed them in 18 countries to work at the countries and regional levels. They are how you say it, game changers, really, our agents of change. They really catalyze so much innovation and the mind shift in the countries. It's amazing to see how they work. And it's a third cohort already, and the retention rate speaks for itself. Over 70% of them from the previous two cohorts stayed with UNFPA under different contractual modalities. And we also sponsored a special junior professional officers program specifically for people of African descent and from Africa. So as you see, we try to cover the empowerment of young people really from different perspectives, from investments to mentorship, coaching, support, employment. And we know it's the smartest investment we can do, really, to do everything possible to empower young people. Thank you so much. Over to you, Sebastian.
Okay, thank you so much, Nigina, for joining us. I think this is a perfect example to all the initiatives that the fund is leading to support young leaders on the field to make the difference. And I think you mentioned a very key point, that is the opportunity to the different agencies are given to different young people to be part of the different agencies. Myself as an IFAD intern is a great opportunity to bring the perception and experience of the field to enter this agency. So thank you so much for joining us. Okay, so now we will move to the Rome agencies. So we will pass the floor to our colleague Nicolas from the World Food Program. So the World Food Program has different initiatives that are supporting an engagement that the young people trying to scale this kind of initiative that they have on the field. So what do you think are the initiatives that the World Food Program Innovation Accelerator are supporting, and how do we can scale these initiatives from the youth leads that are on the field?
Yeah, thank you, Sebastian.
Oh, sorry. Pass the microphone.
Yeah, thank you, Sebastian. That's a very good question. I would say in two ways. So we're really working with many startups. And as you may know, many people in the startups tend to be the youth. But also we do have some projects that are focusing specifically on youth, like Impact Project, which is providing digital training to the different communities, including refugees, so that they can take the different opportunities that are on the market to go and take those jobs. But maybe to provide you with more details, I will go through a few slides here to show you the different programs that we are running at the World Food Program, just to share with you what we are doing and more details in supporting the youth. So we can go to the next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. Just a very quick introduction here for those of you who might not be familiar with the World Food Program. One of the UN agencies. We are focusing on the Sustainable Development Goal number 2 of fighting hunger. That's our main mission. So you can see we are operating in over 80 countries with more than 20,000 employees, really in those hard places to reach, supporting communities being affected by hunger. But as we just heard from the inspiring opening remarks from the Deputy Director General of FAO, our leadership as well has recognized that in order for us to be able to achieve this very bold mission that we have of ending hunger by 2030, we need to bring in innovation. So that's why the Innovation Accelerator was created in 2015. We've been around now for 7 years. We can move to the next slide. Yeah, thank you. So here I can show you a few programs that we're running at the Innovation Accelerator in Munich. The first one is WFP Acceleration, where we're really focusing on all projects that are directly contributing to WFP's mission, working with our country offices in over 80 countries where we're present. Then we do have a global community, regional hubs where we're trying to replicate to be close to the fields where we're operating. We do have another unit which is focusing on innovative finance because we know that in the first bucket where we're providing seed funding to projects, that's not enough if we want these projects to scale up. For those that have been successful, how do you help them to go and scale up to other countries to really grow and make even more impact that they would achieve in the first one? So we're trying to set up an impact fund which will provide more substantial funds to those projects. We're looking into crypto assets, really cool stuff there that we're doing with those teams, supporting them in terms of venture building and frontier innovations. So with frontier innovations, we're looking into AI solutions, great collaborations with Google and all the big players in the sphere, blockchain, robotics. Also, we do recognize that although we are focusing on SDG 2, fighting hunger, but all these SDGs are connected. So we are working with all the other players, focusing on different SDGs and see how we can work together. Actually, we've been working with Nigina's team from UNFPA, so we're working with some UN agencies, providing the same services that we provide to WFP so that we can join our forces and continue working together. Not only UN agencies, but also other big humanitarian organizations like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. We've worked with GIZ, we've worked with Canada Humanitarian Grant Challenge. Again, as I'm saying, on different SDGs so that we can really, all of us, achieve the different goals that we have. Fourth bucket here is the Global Accelerator Platform. We're trying to be close to the communities that we're working with, the same programs that we have in Munich. How can we replicate them in different areas? So now we are looking, we already have an innovation hub in Kenya, which is focusing on East Africa. We have one in Tanzania. We have one in Colombia, focusing on Latin America. But we're trying to see now, how can we even go further, having one platform in the US, one platform in the Middle East, in Dubai, so that can really have that global presence working closely with our project. Can move to the next slide, please. Yeah, so that's the path to scale that projects would go through. First, we do source those innovation ideas. It's a very competitive process. For the 7 years that we've been around, we've received over 8,500 applications with a selection rate of around 1%. Then for those teams that get selected into our programs, we do run bootcamp programs. This is the time to connect these projects with experts in their fields. So we'll bring mentors from WFP, from the private sector, people coming from, in the past we've worked with Google, we've worked with other big names that could really come and provide their expertise to the startups that we're working with. Then we have a sprint program where we are providing seed funding to projects we work with. We give them grants up to $100,000 for a project that is selected to go and run a pilot in a country office where WFP is operating. If they are successful, they would move up to the scale-up program where they go and get support which is tailored to their needs. It's more of a base needs where we wouldn't define this as the financial support that you would get or the kind of project management support that you would get. Everything will be tailored to the needs of the teams that make up to the Scale-Up program. And you can see so far we have 16 projects in our Scale-Up program. These are programs that are reaching more than 100,000 beneficiaries where they're operating in more than one country. We can move to the next slide, please. Yeah, so just to show you where we are present, you can see in 2021, we had projects in close to 70 countries with all the different programs that I was talking about. Yeah, many countries where WFP is operating, we're really present. As I was saying, we are slightly over 80 countries, and you can see almost 70 countries where the Innovation Accelerator was supporting these projects in different dimensions, giving them funds, giving them project management support, but also connecting them with innovation ecosystems in those places where they're operating. Next slide, please. Yes, very happy to report that in 2021, with all these projects that we had in 69 countries, we were able to reach 9 million people in all those countries. And you can see our goal is to go and double the number of people that we are reaching every year. It's a very ambitious goal that we have. So far, we've been able to achieve that. You can see that trend, how it's really going up. And we do believe that's the only way that we can contribute to WFP's mission of ending hunger by 2030, and together with all other organizations that you're working with. Last slide, please. Yeah, these are some of the people we've been working with, the donors that have really helped us to be where we are today. We're always open to collaborations, different ways with the startups that we're working with, all the young people out there who are interested in these solutions that they think will have impact to all the people we're trying to support in different countries. Please come and join us. You can see here on the screen all the interesting companies, all the supporters that we have that we're working with. And I will stop there. Happy to share more. You can go on our website to see the different programs that we have. And yeah, the door is open to everybody who's interested in these programs that we're running at the WFP Innovation Accelerator. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nicola, for this amazing presentation from the World Food Program Innovation Accelerator, and this opportunity for all the young people that is leading actions against hunger, poverty, and climate change. Before to go to the next panelists, I want to just give you a quick reminder. So if you have questions, just start to think about it. And those that are watching us online, just please type the questions on the chat, because the Q&A sessions is coming. So we will pass the floor to our next panelist. This is IFAD colleague, Pate. So thank you so much for joining us, Pate. And you know, the IFAD has been innovating in the region, in the different regions of climate financing, removing the barriers to accessing to financial and non-financial services that support farmers in adopting and implementing climate change adaptation and mitigation best practices. Could you share your experience and how these innovative models can be scaled up, particularly in this global crisis context?
Thank you very much, Sebastian. And I was about to look at my notes, but let me just go straight and be more spontaneous, like all those young people we meet on the field, which on a daily basis we work with. They're smallholder farmers, women, sometimes, 12 years old, 15, 25, 35 in many regions. And I will focus more specifically in Western Central Africa, which I covered from a climate perspective. So those one, whether you are in Zender in Niger, or you are in Bolgatenga somewhere in Ghana, or Kédougou in Senegal, so in the Sahel region, so they're all there and they want to really work in agriculture. So unfortunately, many of those challenges they face prevent them to get into the business. And one of the main challenge is access to finance. So in a situation where finance is not there and they can't really engage in agriculture, whether they're a young graduate student want to do it, or they are working there, they don't have the opportunity. So the only solution is to go to big cities where they will be in slums, which became later on a security problem, or they're trying to come here in Italy, crossing the Mediterranean. Most of them, my brothers, somewhere in Termini, or in the southern part of Italy, in agriculture. So in a way, looking for hope and a dream, which in a certain way is not even there. So they could have maybe done better if they stay home. But the main constraint and key barriers for them to engaging in agriculture remain, again, finance. When finance exists in these countries, it's extremely complicated for a young person without collateral to access, whether you want to get a small ticket of just $1,000 or 500 or even 100. So the interest rate which you will pay is extremely high. In some countries, it's 25%. In other countries, it can go even to 30%. So the lowest one you can get in the region is 10%, and those are with agricultural development banks. When it's microfinance institution, it's 17%. So if you get that money, you need to pay it quickly after a rainy season. The agriculture in this area is rain-fed. We are waiting from one rainy season to another one, and there is no mean to adapt. And if you are in this area of the world, climate change is a reality. Drought, heat waves, floods, locusts, and so on. So obviously, when you are in such context, whoever is a financial institution look at you as a risky business. And if you are risky, obviously nobody will give you. So this is the circle which we have. And that circle obviously push all those people also to migrate or to join even terrorist group. So it's also another opportunity for them to be in a business. And this business is also a global problem for all of us. So what do we do when we meet these people and discussing? So it's not as elaborated as WFP system. We just go on the field, we sit many hours talking to them, and we come up with joint solution. The problem is I can't access this financing, interest rate is very high. So how can we bring money to those people with the lowest interest rate possible? Because they're in an informal sector, they are not in the market, they are the poorest of the poor in the very remote area, and the best way is to get them loan at 0% interest rate. You may tell me distortion of market, but again, they are not even yet in the market. Second, if they have to pay back, we need to make sure they transform this money into impact. They get a bit of time before they pay back. So how can you get loan with a longer repayment period? So we come up with a groundbreaking initiative. We thought that if we work with agricultural bank that represent government at the local level, we bring cheap money earmarked for those communities and for those MSMEs, for those young guys without collateral, but we take the risk, then we will be able to solve the problem, at least to start. And we design an initiative called Inclusive Green Finance for low emission and climate resilient agriculture, particularly for smallholder farmers that are in those areas, young people and women. So when we talk about young people, it's really between 18 to 35. And the Green Climate Fund, which finance and take risk for those communities, we start with a pilot in Niger. I will be there next week, and we are launching one of them, and provide us $10 million, small one. From that initiative, now we were able to design a huge program in the whole entire Sahel and the Green Great Wall countries to $500 million, which has been, part of it has been already approved, and we are working to deploy this money into those countries. What is innovative in this financing scheme is within those banks, we put green lines of credit, 0% interest rate, but only you can access if you do adaptation and mitigation. So in a way, if you come with agriculture business as usual, we won't give it to you. So those banks will screen your project against some criteria, so at least you can get it and do good agriculture that is climate resilient. If you bring also solar for pumping, for transforming your production, you are eligible. A certain number of things that are climate eligible activities that push beyond just doing agriculture, but to do good for the planet, for also getting money and return of investment. But we do know that those communities, they don't necessarily have also capacity. So we put aside a technical assistance facility. If you want to take a project to the bank from idea up to the end, then you need also someone hand-holding. So that technical assistance facility, which is only grant, will provide cooperative farmers organization, MSMEs, to be supported and submit a bankable project so the bank can finance you, and tomorrow you can implement and transform that little amount of money, either it is 50,000 or 100,000 up to 150. So these are really like tickets that are connected to their needs. They are not looking for $1 million, but they're just looking for 20,000 US dollars as a cooperative and so on. And now this provide information to them and possibility to start, and tomorrow, if they get more bankable, they can go in a commercial bank at the normal rates and so on. So this is an initiative which is called Inclusive Green Finance, which today we will be deploying. So it is something which, beyond supporting smallholder farmers, is going also to push the financial system to become green. Those partners, financial institutions that receive the money, obviously will change the way they do business. So we are providing to them, they will help them on their environmental and social governance, on gender action plan or youth action plan. So the institution like IFAD, we have an environment and climate division. The National Agricultural Bank of Niger will have an environment and social inclusion division. So you are also changing institution, and if you change the financial system, then you will change the development landscape. So I'll stop there, and that was one of initiatives which we want to share as a business model, which is mainly dedicated to young people, and we hope in few years it will also become like a kind of a la mode in all the banks, but also in the entire region and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pate, for this amazing explanation of the importance of financing and how this Green Fund is working on the field to support and scaling these initiatives from the rural communities. So now, last but not least, we're going to pass the floor to Christina Stanchel, to the GCI. So the GIC, has been developing several initiatives to empower youth and involving them in development of smart climate change solutions. Could you please tell us a little bit about the initiatives and the strategies that you use to increase the youth participation?
Thank you very much, and thank you very much to the panelists for the really inspiring remarks so far. It's really an honor to be here. I brought a few slides to share about the initiatives that we're doing at the GIZ, specifically in the Global Program for Digital Transformation and the Smart Development Fund. But to talk to your point about engaging, I think there's a lot of different things that you can do, but a lot of them come back to youth-centered innovation. And actually, as I've listened to the other panelists, I think that you all are doing this in some way as well. What that means is it's part of our philosophy of human-centered innovation. So putting people in the center, putting the needs of people in the center, putting youth in the center in the context we're talking about here. And also not just designing things for youth, but really, like you were saying, going out and talking to people, co-designing with people, empowering the youth to be the solution givers, to be the doers, and so on as well. So just to step back for a second and tell you what the Smart Development Fund is. We started in the COVID, we were born at the beginning of COVID actually. So our focus up to now has been countering the challenges of COVID, specifically the health and economic challenges. But what we're trying to do is refining and scaling digital solutions in a variety of different countries, providing partners, whether those are tech startups, NGOs, social businesses, international organizations, with tools and support that they need to pioneer, scale, and accelerate digital innovation successfully. So as we look forward, I think probably the next steps won't necessarily be as COVID bound, but these kind of principles of being human-centered and making digital innovations hopefully work for and with people are definitely something that we're pushing forward into the future as well. And so just to give you a little teaser, I'm not going to talk about all of the projects, but these are the 8 projects in our portfolio now. So we actually started out with an innovation competition in 2020. So we're funded by the EU and the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. And they came together in March of 2020 and said, we have to do something, and we have to do something quickly to fight this, the effects of COVID in our partner countries. So we put on an innovation challenge. It sounds like also several of the partners here use innovation challenges to help start and spark innovation and support youth in their work as well. But we came out with a really diverse portfolio here. And so you can find more information about any of these on our website. But I just wanted to highlight the diversity there, because this was not them saying, we need to go and do X and have X response to health. It was saying, we want to invite people from all over the world, and particularly people who are not in the traditional, maybe the traditional usual suspects to get development funding. We want to invite you to come and share what problems you see and share what solutions you see, to invite also tech innovators to offer solutions and help sort of pair and partner them with community organizations that are looking for those kinds of solutions. So that's why the portfolio is so diverse. We didn't say, we want something with drones, come give us drones. No, we had this really open call, and so you can see what came out of that from the needs and solutions and ideas in communities around the world. And now, as it mentioned on the other slide, we have expanded these into 39 different countries so far. And so one of the programs I really want to highlight in our context today is YOMA. So that's a program that really supports the learning to earning journey for youth. And there are three kind of pillars of that I think are really important, to come back to your question also of engagement again. One is that this is a program that was conceptualized from day one with youth and by youth through co-creation workshops. Youth are on not just as advisors, but they're on the board, so they've been involved in the structural leadership of YOMA since the beginning. They're in the staff. There are also internship opportunities that pull in people who are engaged in the project and want to get more engaged and want to be also change agents to sort of support the initiative more broadly. The other pillar that I think is interesting is the ecosystem approach. So that's another thing that if you talk about engaging people, it's not just sending out a call on Twitter or something, it's really working with partners on the ground. I know you guys also have great networks, and going to them and listening to them and also asking them, what do people need, and really engaging those ecosystems and reaching out. And then also the third thing, also just to be a little more concrete too about the offerings that YOMA is doing. So we provide pathways for upskilling, for community engagement and employment. So that's learning opportunities through our platform, but also we've had a lot of actions for community challenges. And actually, green is one of the areas that we're focusing on more and more, with the idea of Green YOMA, and engaging youth in participating in those actively. And then also connecting them through the platform or through the marketplace with opportunities. So I was really interested to hear also the World Bank example about blockchain, because we actually are also using blockchain in the same way, or a similar way, to use that to verify skills building and activity participation that then the youth can show in a reliable and verifiable way what they've done, and they can also earn digital tokens. So it sounds like, I hope that we can talk later with our virtual colleagues on World Bank more about that. But yeah, so that's one example, I think, of a program that's really has youth completely at its center in all levels, and really, I think, a success story from our side about funding and supporting youth innovation. And the other initiative that I want to highlight is the Hack for Earth. So I actually am hoping to make a little bit of a sales plug, because I hope that people in this room and people watching online will join us. This is an innovation initiative that's coming up on the 2nd through 4th of November. And the vision is actually doing innovation to create data-based green digital solutions to climate change. So that's the sort of overall vision and goal, kind of getting back to the first part of your question. But then also, you can see also the objectives here is really about how we're working with the youth. So we're really trying to give visibility to people, matching them also, so not just working with organizations, but an individual youth, either scientist or data specialist or business person, anyone who feels like they have a passion and skills to contribute, can then also come and be matched with other people who are interested and care about that. They don't have to have an organization behind them. And really trying to take an empowerment approach for them that we hope, in addition to the days of this actual event, will help support them with information and with networks, as well as getting the voice of leadership. So that's why also I think the pre-events are quite important. So we're running, it's a global hackathon. It's in English, but we tried to really keep the hurdles to participation low, because also speaking about engagement, sometimes people can't even get into the programs that we traditional international development organizations run, because you have to have so much resources and processes, and I think Beth mentioned hierarchy. So we really tried to keep that to the minimum, to really be as inclusive as possible, to engage and let youth take the front stage on that. And the pre-events are happening in a variety of different countries, so that also, even besides this hack itself, hopefully the youth are then engaging in learning opportunities and support that will extend beyond the actual event. But we would love to have you guys, so and then the innovation event itself, I should probably mention, the winners do have a prize. They will present their solutions at the COP27 roundtable and will go into the Build for Earth mentorship and accelerator program. But yeah, so like I said, sorry for the shameless pitch, but we'd love to see everyone here as mentors, as participants in that coming up in a few weeks, and you can find more information on the website. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, knowing we're running short on time, but given the focus here on agriculture is the Digital Agriculture Africa program. So that's another program from the Smart Development Fund portfolio. And it's, like you said, really small shareholders are in a vulnerable position, and a lot of time women, in particular youth, are really represented in that group in Africa, and not having access to the financing and the education, the network and information that the commercial farmers do. So Digital Agriculture Africa is really trying to also focus on providing, using digital tools and platforms to create opportunity and engage youth and women in particular. And one engagement strategy that's worked out really well for one of our local partners there is having youth also as facilitators. So again, this idea of not just doing something for someone, but really like empowering the youth to be then also the facilitators. And I think when the partner was doing recruitment with sort of the traditional staff, I think they had maybe a 15% sign-up rate. Then they got youth involved really more deeply in the organization, and they found something like a 70% participation rate. So you really see it makes a difference, kind of who and how the message is shared. And again, coming back to that idea, we need to design the programs with the youth really in the center for them to be effective and engaged. So that's, I guess, would be kind of the closing to my answer to your question, but also in kind of sharing the programs that we have at GIZ for youth is really with youth, for youth, and by youth. I think that's really the future of international development cooperation, is this human-centered approach, and trying to think that way also to strive for digital inclusion and reducing digital divides for innovation. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Christina, for this amazing initiative that you are leading and for the opportunity that you are giving to the young leaders that want to keep growing. So now it's time for our Q&A session. So first of all, I want to ask to anyone here in the room, if anyone have a question, you can raise your hand and some of our colleagues can pass the mic. So I don't know if any one of you have a question for any one of our panelists. Okay.
Okay, thanks. First of all, thanks to anybody here, to everybody, for the interesting content you share with us. And I work in a VC operator in Italy, so I'm not in the impact business. I work in the finance industry. We work with startups. And lately we launched decarbonization accelerator, and we are starting to work with organizations to help them to introduce lean practices to their let's say to some of their activities to help them to be more lean, so involve less money in their activities. And we saw that this is working really well in some of the agencies. So one question for me is like, we work like in a strong relationship with an ecosystem. As a venture capital, we have to help the startups to interact with corporations, with institutions. So the ecosystem is very important to bring innovation and to help these projects, these teams. So I was wondering, since like there are so many accelerators in developing or countries that are in crisis or difficult situation, and for what we saw, like you could find people that are stimulated, so like want to be entrepreneurs, want to be founders. It's not that hard to find young people that have the guts, the strength to build projects. What's complicated is to find like a supporting community, a supporting ecosystem. So how do you build a supporting community close to those young people, to those projects. Thanks.
Okay, to all of our panelists can take the floor.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good question. I would say from a WFP Innovation Accelerator standpoint, what we're trying to do, as I was saying, now we're trying to have actually hubs in the regions. For example, with Tanzania country office, now we have an innovation hub. As you were saying, we're trying to build that ecosystem. So they would organize different events where you would bring in different stakeholders. So innovators, impact investors, startups in the whole, in that country, in that ecosystem, they would come together. There are always different events organized by the country office, would support country offices to identify different challenges they have in their respective countries in order to build that ecosystem, as you're saying. I really agree with you. That's key if we want to support the youth to be successful. So I would say, from our opinion, that's what we're trying to do. And as I mentioned in my presentation, like the different platforms that we're trying to do, it's along those lines, because we also recognize the needs of creating that ecosystem so that these innovators can be supported. Giving them a grant for an organization that is based in Germany, that's not enough. So they need to work together to understand different challenges and how everybody can chip in to make this solution sustainable. So my fellow panelists, maybe they can add also for their respective organizations.
Thanks. In many African countries, when you are an investor, the first thing you think about is risk, because there are many things that are not in place. So second, you have also fragile and conflict countries. So even in a fragile and conflict countries, there is a market because people are there. So they need to eat, even if they are fighting, and there is always a perimeter of security. So at the end of the day, you have population, people, markets. Now, you take the risk, you may make a lot of money. You are not taking the risk, there will be always. So how to take that risk? There are several steps. Either in a context where development partners like IFA, WFP, World Bank, and the others are supporting the government, and those governments to at least create the enabling environment. It starts by, if you need to come, we will help with grant resources to produce data, to produce guideline, to produce also some regulation, public-private partnership. So to support you for, like the first step you need to do, and also protect the business. And these aspects of enabling environment help to be more comfortable and secure such kind of initiative for you to come in. And if you come in, obviously there is always on the other side some partners that may want to make a joint venture with you because they know the ground. Because if you want to get in and like you want to work in a given country, the first thing as a startup you will look is there any local startup? Because if there is no local startup, then you may be saying there is something wrong. But if you find those local startups trying, then it means there is a business opportunity. But they don't necessarily have the strength, and with a kind of equity joint venture, they will be able to push the limit and then structure and grow. So to me, I think risk need to be just calculated, and at the end of the day, if you are able to get those different scenarios, you may want to get wherever you want to get, depending on what kind of business you want to put in place. But I think most of African leaders are saying also these rating agencies sometimes kind of estimate the risk when sometimes it's even lower. And risks are always, and I think we should really build on those kind of enabling environment to push forward over.
Okay, thank you so much, Fateh. Prema, you want to say something?
Yes, Sebastian, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity again. So it's very interesting you asked this question because ecosystem is probably the only way in which not only about reaching out to people, but also dipping into wisdom of the crowds. So I'll give you an example. When we're working on education and technology projects here at the bank, Robert, his team, and we have been very closely looking at what's happening with the Learning Economy Foundation. What are the different governments doing? What are the technology barriers? How would you bring a wallet in? What is the identity issues? So when you kind of go reach out to that ecosystem, you are able to solve different layers of the problem that you would have not otherwise thought about. So I think the perspective that the gentleman who asked the question was very relevant. There are two reasons to dip into the ecosystem. One is to also have a wider reach so that people know what you're doing. But more importantly, when it comes to technology and financing, there are lots of these different layers of aspects that we are not aware of. And unless you start speaking to a larger crowd, you will not be able to get support and advice on moving some of these things forward, especially because some of these spaces are so nascent and so quickly developing that unless you keep speaking to people, you're never going to be able to keep your product or offering as sharp as necessary for the youth. So just from that perspective, I think the question you asked, as well as the work we are doing here, is both very relevant. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much. So we have another question quickly. Oh, someone can pass the mic. Thanks.
Out of time, be very brief.
Yeah, I will be very briefly. You know, about Amat, what you were saying, I'm in the field of finance, doing a lot of private equity, probably the major ones here in Europe about agriculture. When you look to the things happening on the ground, you're talking about small tickets. In some cases, without any kind of innovation, honestly, because people simply would like to start something traditional in agriculture. What about the fiscal leverage looking to the developed country? Saying to people that are living here or in another developed country to do something directly, maybe a sort of crowdfunding on the ground, maybe with a fiscal leverage, because maybe you know, probably yes you know, but here in Italy, for instance, there is a full leverage for fiscal reason if you are doing some kind of a donation, 100% directly. So maybe you can arrange some kind of very small tickets dedicated exactly to that specific person. I don't know.
Maybe on that, and you're absolutely right. There are now some products that are called even nano credit. Like it's not even small, but it's very, very small, and it's huge for the smallholder farmers. For instance, in fishery, there are women, the only job they do is the morning they go to the beach, they buy fish, and they sell it again. They just need like maybe $2, $3. When they sell it, they have 15 or 20. It changed their lives 3 times what they have, but they need someone to give them that $3 or $5. And this is, I think, on the fiscal one, most of the incentive that have been put in place is if you are an MSMEs and you are young, so up to 4 or 5 years, you won't pay any tax. Because if you start paying tax, there is a study in most of these MSMEs in developing countries, particularly in Africa, the average for MSMEs to be born and die is 3 years. During these 3 years, it's critical. You can create a startup, and then after 3 years, you disappear. So now, during this period, it's better than you don't pay tax, so it gives you strength to continue. And if you are strong enough and resilient, maybe you will go beyond the 4 or 5 years and then become maybe a medium and a bigger later. So those are also some incentive, and you're fully right, to help push financing and also growth in the agri sector.
Okay, thank you so much to everyone for your questions. I know that there are more questions, but as we know, the time in TV is too short. So we will pass the floor to Gladys to start the final part of the questions. So thank you so much to our panelists, online also, and everyone to be in this session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sebastian, and to all our panelists. I know that there are more questions in the audience, and I also know that Nigina, joining us remotely, also wanted to ask, actually to reply some of the questions. So apologies for the inconvenience now, since we have to move on with the program. I'm very honored now to introduce IFAD's Associate Vice President, Katie Megan, where she's part of the IFAD's senior management team, and I don't have time to make justice to Katie, but I just want to say that she's hugely responsible for placing IFAD and getting IFAD to obtain a AA+ credit rating and accessing capital markets. So Katie, please join us for the closing remarks.
Thank you so much. It's really my honor to be here with all of you today and to hear these great thoughts, how we can really empower youth to be at the center of ideas for innovation around financing and rural development, which really is critical. We started this collaboration with FAO Youth at the inception of the World Food Forum in 2020, and it's just terrific to look around and see the progress that has been made, particularly with the links among different institutions, as we have here on the stage today and virtually joining us from many locations around the world. We know that young people, regardless of their socioeconomic, demographic, geographical situations, face challenges in transitioning to adulthood and productive employment. This is something that is the same wherever you are around the world. However, we also know that about 87% of the global youth are living in the developing world, where there are even stronger challenges. And we know also that certain populations, generally women, girls, and minorities, have even more difficult challenges in accessing finance. And so I think that this type of topic today about how do we access finance, how do we use innovative digital solutions to try to help us unlock some of these long-standing challenges are really critical. We're really looking that studies have shown that impact is enhanced when the financing is there, but when it's also complemented with training, knowledge sharing, literacy, and these types of mentorship opportunities. So I think it's been terrific to hear of the broad range of these that are available today and seeing the enhanced collaboration just over these last 2 years. At IFAD, we know that investing in rural youth is critical. This is something that we have done for decades. We have 4 cross-cutting themes investing in youth, gender, climate, and nutrition. And youth is our future. I really liked what Beth said in the opening today, that youth are not just our future leaders, they're our leaders of today. And I think we really saw that today, that in order to make a difference, we need to have youth leading the conversations, youth at the center of the dialogue and at the center of finding solutions. And that's exactly what IFAD's Youth Desk is striving to do, and I was delighted to have your very professional and engaging facilitation of this discussion today and to really show that and demonstrate that. So in addition to financing, we have to look to find technical advice, training, support, and finding these types of opportunities. I think at IFAD and with all of our partner organizations, we are committed to increasing youth representation, having youth at the center of these dialogues. We need to hear youth voices. So I really encourage everyone here today in this beautiful Roman weather. It's true, it is 23 degrees outside, it's lovely. And all of those joining online to continue to empower and amplify voices of the youth. I just want to amplify a few of the messages that we heard today, which I think particularly resonated with me. So for example, we heard from Yuri at IDB about, I would say, a really challenging call to action. How can we further focus on women and girls, and how can we further focus on diverse communities in terms of our innovation and bringing them into this discussion? We have been affected by a real triple shock in finance. We've had COVID, I call it the 3 Cs, COVID, climate change, and now the crisis that we're seeing in Ukraine. And this is really focusing a huge shock throughout the global economy. But while we're all facing these challenges, I think that traditionally underrepresented populations like women and girls in diverse communities have even larger challenges than the rest of us. So let's not forget that focus on these underrepresented and I think disproportionately affected communities as we go forward. I've also really enjoyed hearing from Nicolas at WFP on idea origination, because it's youth who can also really be the ones to help us originate ideas together. And I think that that is really critical in having youth at the core of ideas. I would also like to shout out to the World Bank and the ideas on blockchain. I thought that was fascinating, and the idea of youth as digital natives. That's been a very important and I think critical thing. For those of us who are old as I am and you actually have children, you know, very frankly, you are not a digital native. When I figured this out when my oldest son was 6 years old and I had my iPad just completely crashed. And I had a colleague calling from South Africa, what do I do? And my 6-year-old walks into the kitchen and says, Mom, just reboot it. And so I told her, just reboot it. And she did, and it worked. And I thought, from the mouth of a 6-year-old. So I think that youth is really important to really lead the dialogue, because youth knows the issues in a way that others of us do not being digital natives, not being in the same types of challenges to access finance, to find how to grow ideas without collateral, with more challenges. And so I want to thank all of you working in collaboration today, all of you on this panel, all of you out there, and all of you who really have supported the World Food Forum from its inception only 2 years ago. I think you should look around and be very proud of the success that you have made in affecting real change in individuals' lives. And I encourage you to keep working together. Youth are our future leaders, and youth are our leaders of today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Katie. Before we close today, I would like to thank everyone for being here, our partners, the University Tor Vergata, L Ventures, the European Institute of Innovation for Sustainability, the champions of the World Food Forum, Kazuki Kitaoka, Ed Bogart, Lorenzo Gentile, and also our IFAD team behind the scenes. Carmela Lopez, a huge applause to Carmela, to John Laird, to Anne-Catherine Beck, Federica Emma, and Alessandra Labocetta. And thank you so much to our speakers for being here today. Without you, we wouldn't be able to have this event, because you are bringing the knowledge and also the financial instruments and the opportunities for all of us to share today, and for youth to take advantage of. Please visit the websites of all the speakers that were here today. Take advantage of those opportunities. Take advantage of the GIZ opportunities that are coming up in this fall. And join us also at the IFAD Innovation Network. If you have any questions, please write to innovation@ifad.org. Thank you and goodbye.